The MCU's been on quite a ride. Heroes have fallen, new ones have taken the spotlight, and the stories just keep coming through both movies and shows. But one thing you can always count on? There's always another big Marvel flick on the horizon. These summer blockbusters are basically the heartbeat of the whole thing, and Marvel's pretty good at keeping us in the loop. So, let's dive into what's coming up next in the MCU. Thunderbolts, May 5th, 2025. When it comes to putting villains and anti-heroes in the spotlight, DC has been ahead of the game for a while. Just look at Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, and the Joker movies. But now, Marvel's finally stepping into that lane with Thunderbolts. This movie feels like their first real attempt at telling a story that centers around the bad guys, and it's actually tied into some pretty big stuff in the MCU. Over the past few years, we've seen hints of something bigger brewing with Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She's popped up in Black Widow, Hawkeye, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Wakanda Forever. With Thunderbolts, it looks like we're finally going to find out what her big plan has been all along. Marvel's Thunderbolts is bringing together a bunch of familiar faces from the MCU, a mix of anti-heroes and villains that most folks had kinda written off. But this misfit squad might be exactly what the MCU needs right now, blending action with a deeper story about redemption. If you're into Marvel, there's definitely a lot to get excited about here. Marvel dropped the official Thunderbolts lineup back at the 2022 D23 Expo, and it's full of familiar faces. Leading the team is Contessa Val, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's clearly the one calling the shots. She's pulling together a crew of anti-heroes and misfits, including Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, Taskmaster, U.S. Agent, aka John Walker, Ghost, and of course, Bucky Barnes. With a team this stacked, there might not be much room left for surprise additions, but you know Marvel fans are always on the lookout for any unexpected twists. With the release date coming up fast, the marketing's ramping up, and Marvel just dropped a new trailer that feels way different from their usual stuff. Florence Pugh even said it gave off A24 vibes, and Marvel's clearly rolling with that feel, especially since the trailer highlights a bunch of actors who've actually worked on A24 films. Honestly, this might be one of the most fun trailers Marvel's ever released. The title, Absolute Cinema, is a playful wink at the whole Martin Scorsese meme and his take on superhero movies. It gives fans a solid look at the movie's tone, the team's chemistry, and the big threat they're facing, Sentry. This character is the biggest wild card in the Thunderbolts lineup. In the comics, this guy is insanely overpowered, like next level strong. But in Thunderbolts, it seems like he's stepping into the villain role at least for part of the story. That said, knowing his comic background, there's a solid chance he'll eventually flip the script and lean into his heroic side. If that happens, he could become a major force in the MCU going forward. With Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars on the way, Sentry might just be one of the most important characters to watch. Moving from him, in another new Thunderbolts promotional clip, Marvel's really leaning into the whole look at our talented production crew vibe. It's got a behind-the-scenes feel, showing off some of the real practical stunts they pulled off for the movie. The big moment? Florence Pugh literally jumps off the Merdeka 118 in Malaysia. Yeah, that's the second tallest building in the world. No big deal, right? Honestly, there's no way you could pay me enough to jump off that thing. Heights? Absolutely not. But it's kinda cool seeing Marvel spotlight this kind of stuff. They've caught a lot of heat over the years for going overboard with green screen and CGI, so this feels like a real shift, and I'm into it. Fans have been asking for more grounded, practical filmmaking, and this trailer feels like a step in that direction. Sure, there's still CGI, this is Marvel after all, but mixing in more real-world action is a win, especially when you think back to some of Marvel's rougher CGI moments. What really stands out is how different the marketing feels this time. It's not the usual slick, copy-paste promo. It's a little more raw, a little more real, and that could seriously help this movie stand out before it even hits theaters. From what I've seen so far, Thunderbolts might actually break away from the standard Marvel mold. But that's just my take. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th, 2025. The Fantastic Four have always been a huge part of Marvel's legacy, and honestly, the MCU's kind of felt like something was missing without them, just like it did before Spider-Man and the X-Men came in. Even the title, First Steps, feels like a hint that this is just the beginning of a bigger journey. We're only 3 months out from the Fantastic Four hitting theaters, and it's a big deal. This has been something Marvel boss Kevin Feige's wanted to make happen for years. But instead of jumping straight into the future, the movie's actually taking us back in time. It's set in a retro-futuristic corner of the multiverse, kind of a reimagined mid-1900s where Art Deco style meets classic sci-fi vibes. Before they became the iconic superhero team we know, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm were just 4 brilliant astronauts. They took on a dangerous space mission, things went sideways, and bam, superpowers. According to director Matt Shakman, the movie aims to capture that hopeful, forward-looking vibe from the 1950s and 60s. This is very much about the spirit of the space race, says Shakman. It's about JFK and optimism. It's imagining these 4 going into space instead of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. This idea is that they are the most famous people in America because they're adventurers, explorers, astronauts, not because they're superheroes. And they come back and they're superheroes on top of it. But primarily they're astronauts, their family. Shakman, who previously directed the retro-styled WandaVision, wanted this film to feel like it came straight out of that era, or at least a stylized, MCU-flavored version of it. I really wanted to go with as grounded a version of space as possible, he says, so no wormholes. Their tech is very much retro-future, but it's also booster rockets. It's a combination of Marvel and Apollo 11. That same mindset carried over into how the movie was actually made. From the set design to the costumes and even the way it was shot, everything was crafted to really sell that throwback, vintage MCU vibe. I really wanted it to feel like it was made in 1965, the way Stanley Kubrick would have made it, says Shakman, within reason. There is, he says, an emphasis on practical sets and props. The production included a 14-foot-tall spaceship miniature similar to how Kubrick used miniatures in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Shakman and his team have used old lenses and taken an approach to filmmaking that feels more of the time. Of course, we still have a lot of CG. It's pretty clear this movie's gonna have a totally different vibe from the usual MCU stuff. What really stands out is that it's set apart from everything we've seen in the franchise up to now. We are our own universe, says Shakman, which is wonderful and liberating. There's really no other superheroes, there's no Easter eggs, there's no running into Iron Man or whatever. They're it in this universe. I love the interconnected Marvel universe, but we get to do something so new and so different. Eventually this world will meet up with other worlds, but for now this is our own little corner. That eventual crossover with other worlds is clearly a nod to Avengers Doomsday coming up, so yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. Another cool bit? Fantastic Four First Steps is actually giving us a real Galactus costume. Yep, not just a fully CG villain this time. Director Matt Shakman recently talked about Galactus' role in the movie and confirmed he's the main threat. He also shared why they went with practical effects over just motion capture. Turns out, the team wanted to give Galactus a fresh look for the MCU while still keeping him grounded and epic at the same time. Matt Shakman shared that they approached Galactus way differently this time around. I didn't want to just go the motion capture route, he told Entertainment Weekly. Instead, they had Ralph Ineson actually suit up and play the role in a full-on costume. Unlike the 2007 Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, where Galactus was basically just a giant space cloud, First Steps gives us the real deal, decked out in full armor inspired by Jack Kirby's original comic book design. Shakman said they did a ton of photography tests to get the scale right on screen. We had to figure out how to shoot something that big, like how do you even film Mount Rushmore, he joked. Going practical with Galactus fits the whole retro-futurist vibe of the movie. Shakman described the look as where Kirby meets Kubrick, blending that bold comic book style with the epic spacey feel of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So they're really leaning into the 60s aesthetic while still making it feel fresh and sci-fi. Pedro Pascal talked about just how massive the threat of Galactus really is. It is definitely a scale of threat which Reed has never experienced. Even the smartest man in the world is awestruck by a being that outdates his understanding of time. Besides Galactus, Fantastic Four First Steps has a pretty stacked supporting cast. Julia Garner plays Shala Bal, aka the Silver Surfer. She's Galactus's powerful, silver-skinned herald who zips through space on that iconic surfboard. Garner's performance is done through motion capture, bringing that otherworldly vibe to life. The film also includes Paul Walter Hauser, John Malkovich, Natasha Lyonne, and Sarah Niles, who plays a character named Lynn. Details on the others are still mostly under wraps, but knowing this group, we're probably in for some bold performances. We're also getting the Fantastic Four's robot sidekick, Kirby, making his live-action debut. Plus, Mark Gatiss pops up as Ted Gilbert, the host of The Ted Gilbert Show, which definitely sounds like a retro nod. And just when you think it can't get more packed, Mole Man is reportedly making an appearance, and the biggest surprise? A rumored post-credits cameo by none other than Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom. Yep, Dr. Doom. That twist alone could send shockwaves through the MCU, so this movie is not holding back. Avengers Doomsday, May 1st, 2026. Avengers Doomsday is shaping up to be a big deal for the future of the MCU. Basically, if a Marvel movie has Avengers in the title, you can bet it's going to matter. These films have always been the ones where everything comes together. Major plot lines, big reveals, and all the crossover madness fans love. While we don't know exactly how things will go down in Avengers Doomsday, expectations are sky high. Originally, Marvel was building everything up around Kang the Conqueror as the next big villain, kind of like the new Thanos. But that plan hit a wall in 2023 after some serious legal trouble for Jonathan Majors, who played Kang. Marvel ended up cutting ties with him, and because of that, their whole game plan changed. What was once called Avengers the Kang Dynasty is now Avengers Doomsday, and the new direction has everyone curious. This major shakeup became official at San Diego Comic-Con 2024. That's where Marvel confirmed that Joe and Anthony Russo are back in the director's chairs for the movie. And the big surprise? Robert Downey Jr. is returning to the MCU, but not as Iron Man. He's playing Victor Von Doom. Wild, right? Since Tony Stark died in Avengers Endgame, fans have been buzzing about how RDJ could come back, and this definitely wasn't on most people's bingo cards. There's no word yet on whether there'll be a link between Stark and Doom in the story, but that casting alone has sparked a ton of fan theories. Speaking of the cast, it's stacked. We've got Chris Hemsworth back as Thor, Anthony Mackie suiting up as Captain America, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, Tenoch Huerta as Namor, Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, Letitia Wright as the new Black Panther, Danny Ramirez as the new Falcon, and Winston Duke as M'Baku. And that's just the start. The Fantastic Four are showing up, the Thunderbolts are in the mix, and we're even getting some of the OG X-Men back. We're talking Kelsey Grammer as Beast, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler, Rebecca Romaine as Mystique, James Marsden as Cyclops, and, yep, Channing Tatum finally stepping in as Gambit. All of that is already wild, but there are some casting choices that seriously make a few of the craziest MCU fan theories feel way more possible than I ever thought they'd be. The MCU hasn't always stuck to the comics word for word, but the new casting for Avengers Doomsday might have just set up a solid replacement for one of the key characters from the original comic storyline. With such a huge lineup already confirmed, it's worth noting that some big comic names, like the Beyonder, still haven't been added to the movie. And with limited screen time to juggle all these characters, it's pretty unlikely they'll be introducing even more major players. So instead, it looks like the movie might repurpose existing characters to take over those important roles. And let's be real, the way the multiverse works in the MCU has been kinda all over the place. Between No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, Quantumania, and everything in between, the multiverse rules have been shifting. But now, thanks to the TVA showing up in Deadpool and Wolverine, things are finally starting to click. Their role and terminology might actually give us some solid clues about where the whole multiverse saga is headed. Oh, and Avengers Doomsday officially brings Loki back into the mix. Spider-Man 4, July 24th, 2026. The latest Spider-Man 4 news is seriously exciting if you've been missing Tom Holland's Spidey in the MCU. No Way Home was a huge win, becoming the third biggest MCU movie ever, and even though it felt like a wrap-up, the ending left the door wide open for more. Some folks thought it might be Holland's last time in the suit, but clearly there's more in store. No Way Home nailed the superhero formula. Big action, emotional moments, and tons of fan-favorite surprises. It showed that Marvel can still bring the heat after Endgame. Now, everyone's looking at what's next for Spidey, and there's some big stuff brewing. One of the most exciting reveals? Sadie Sink has joined the cast in a mystery role. Yeah, the Stranger Things star is officially stepping into the MCU alongside Holland. No word yet on who she's playing, but fans have tossed around theories, from a multiverse Jean Grey to maybe even a new version of Mary Jane, though Zendaya already owns that role. Either way, she's a great pick. Sony's Amy Pascal also dropped a bombshell. Spider-Man 4 isn't the end. She confirmed that a whole new Spidey trilogy is coming. So yep, more Tom Holland adventures on the way. On top of that, Sony's Tony Rothman confirmed we'll be getting another big MCU crossover like we saw with Doctor Strange in No Way Home. Behind the scenes, Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton is helming Spider-Man 4, and the writers from the last Spidey movies are back too, so we're in good hands. As for the story, it's still under wraps, but Pascal teased that it'll focus more on Peter embracing being Spider-Man full-time, now that he's decided to leave his personal life behind. There are rumors about multiverse chaos, a darker symbiote arc, and even street-level drama with Kingpin taking over NYC in Daredevil Born Again. We could even see Spidey team up with Daredevil again. What's next for Spidey is still a bit of a mystery, but one thing's for sure, his story isn't over, and we'll definitely be seeing more of him on the big screen. Could the MCU finally bring in its own version of Venom? Maybe set up a clash with Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin now that he's becoming a major threat? Or even introduce characters like Scorpion, who was already teased with Michael Mando's Mark Gargan, or Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat. There are a lot of potential directions, and at this point, it's just a waiting game to see which ones Marvel goes with. Avengers Secret Wars, May 7th, 2027. Expectations are already sky high for Avengers Doomsday, but when it comes to Avengers Secret Wars, those expectations basically go through the roof. As cool as the idea of Robert Downey Jr. possibly returning as Doctor Doom sounds, it's almost nothing compared to what Secret Wars could mean for the MCU. It's named after two of the biggest comic crossover events ever, after all. There's a real possibility this movie could completely change the game for the whole franchise. We don't know much about the actual storyline yet, but one major piece of info is that Michael Waldron, who worked on Loki Season 1 and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, is writing the script. That alone has fans hoping Secret Wars will pull elements from both the original 1984 comic series and the 2015 reboot, both of which had universe-shattering stakes. Well, that's it for today. Which upcoming Marvel movie are you most excited for, and why? Let's hear your take in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll see you.